Hey there, brother friends and sister friends. Welcome back to the Heart Set Above podcast. We're in the middle of a series on internal family systems, or IFS, which is a therapeutic framework that I often use with clients that gives us just a helpful lens for understanding ourselves, our pains, and some of the distortions that shape how we move through this world. So in this series, we're using parts language. And when I say parts, I'm simply referring to our patterns of thinking, feeling, or behaving. And so those patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving are often our protector parts. And the reason those patterns came about are usually born of our exiled parts, or the parts that hold our core pains. And so in the last episode, we talked about how to identify parts, especially protector parts, and how to begin getting curious about them. Today, we're taking the next step. We're going to talk about how to connect with our parts, how to validate them, and how to begin partnering with them in our inner world. So there's a ground rule in IFS that everything else is built on, and that rule is this: all parts are good. All parts are good. Now, that doesn't mean that every behavior our parts produce is good. It means that the intention behind the part is good. The motivation behind the pattern of thinking, behaving, or emotion comes from a good place. Every part of you is trying to do something good for you, even the parts that feel disruptive or loud or critical or exhausting. Now, most of our parts were formed in childhood when our brains were less developed and our understanding of the world was more limited. So while their intentions are good, their methods are often outdated or distorted. And that's why many parts don't initially feel good to us. In fact, most clients start by saying things like, "I hate this part of me," or "this part ruins everything," or "I wish this part would just go away." But once we truly understand a part, its fear, its goal, and what it's been trying to protect us from, we often begin to see it very differently. For example, a part that makes you shut down emotionally might feel like the enemy until you realize it learned that strategy because vulnerability once led to pain. And that part is trying to protect you from experiencing that pain again. Its method may be costly today, but its motive was always protection. It was always good. And here's the key principle of this episode: parts will not relinquish control until they feel seen and understood. So our goal is not to get rid of parts. Our goal is to come alongside them, validate their role, and build enough trust so that they're willing to loosen their grip and trust us to lead and protect our inner world rather than them leading our inner world, our parts. So think of it like this. If someone barges into your life yelling, "You're doing this wrong, stop," you're probably not going to listen to them, right? But if someone sits beside you and says, "I see why you're doing this. It makes sense to me. And I want what you want. But I think there may be a better way. Let's talk about that." You're probably much more likely to respond to that kind of intervention. And our parts are no different. And here's the twist: parts can sense an agenda. If they feel like you're trying to fix or eliminate them, they're going to tighten their grip rather than loosen it. So awareness doesn't usually happen accidentally with our parts. It's a muscle that we have to build intentionally. So let me give you a tool to try to identify and connect with your parts. One tool I often use is a therapeutic intervention called the meeting place. So start with a few minutes of slow breathing, nothing fancy, just enough to settle your mind and your body. Then imagine a safe internal space. For some people, it's an open field in a meadow. For others, it's a quiet room with a fire in the corner. For others, it's a grove of trees. For me, it's often a green Irish field. And in that space, imagine a simple meeting area, a bench, a few chairs, maybe even stones carved into a rock wall. take a seat, and then gently invite any parts that need attention into that space. You might say, any part of me that needs attention right now is welcome here. And then just notice what shows up. And when a part appears, start simple. Ask, what does this part look like? Does it have a shape, an age, or even a color? What posture does it hold? Where do I notice the feeling of this part in my body? Now, let me use a personal example that we've been building on just to make these ideas stick. Imagine I'm sitting in my meeting place, this green Irish field with chairs carved out of the rock walls, and I invite any part that needs attention into that space, and a protector shows up. This is the part that I mentioned in the last episode, the one that tries not to rely on anyone, the one that tries to stay one step ahead of life so that I never have to depend on other people. Now, because this part does not trust other people to protect me, it's taken up the mantle of my protection by never being vulnerable enough to trust anyone. So when I look at this part in this safe internal meeting space, this is what I notice. It's big. It's heavy laden. It kind of looks like the Thing from Fantastic Four. It's made of these huge boulders, just like big rocks is what it's made of. It's hunched over and its arms are wrapped around its chest and his head is kind of buried. He's hiding, but he's also ominous, impenetrable, maybe even a little bit spiky, like the rocks are a little bit jagged. And when I ask, where do I feel this part in my body? I notice it most in my shoulders. It feels like a squaring up, a bracing, sort of a protective stance. It even feels heavy on my shoulders, kind of like tension in my shoulders. Now that I'm aware of this part, I ask one of the most important questions in IFS. How do I feel toward this part? Now, your answer here matters because it tells you who is present inside of you. If the answer is curiosity, compassion, or openness, that's usually a sign that you're operating from that core self, that centered place within you that reflects the image of God we were created with in Eden. But if the answer is anger, fear, disgust, impatience, contempt, anything like that, that tells us something important, that there's another protector part that has entered the scene. And that's okay. When that happens, we simply pause and say, there's a part of me that feels very angry at this part. And so we just pause with that original protector part and we turn our attention toward that angry part first. I often call this clearing the deck, making sure no protector part is ignored or bulldozed. So in my example, I pause with this big boulder protector and I gently turn my attention toward the part that's just entered that is angry at this Hulk-like protector boulder part of mine. And I ask the same questions to this new angry part of me. What does it look like? Where do I feel it in my body? What is this new protector part trying to do for me? What is it afraid of? And I begin to notice something. This part of me kind of looks like me, but with my hands on my hips and frustrated. I feel the feeling of this part in my chest and in my arms, almost aching for a hug. She's angry because she believes that this boulder protector has kept me from true, authentic, mutually dependent intimacy for a long time. She feels starved for real connection, real vulnerability, even though it's scary. And in her mind, this big boulder protector is the very thing standing in the way of that type of intimacy that she's been longing for. By not allowing my inner world to trust anyone, this boulder-like protector has kept this part of me starved for connection for too long, and she's had enough. She's angry. So before I move forward with this big boulder protector part, I validate this angry part of her. I might say, I see you now. You want deep connection. You want to be known and to know others. You're exhausted by disconnection. I understand that. And I want all of that too. And then I gently ask, would you be willing to step back for a moment so that I can understand what this boulder protector part is trying to do for us? Because if we understand it, we might find a way to get what you really want, that connection, that intimacy. And when that angry, frustrated part of me feels seen, she's often willing to step aside. Now, there may be several parts that need to step aside first. That's okay. Spend the necessary time clearing the deck, because when you do, your inner system becomes calmer. And that's when we return to that original big boulder-like part that we met in that meeting space. Once we have that basic understanding of what a part looks like, how it shows up, we go deeper. We ask, what is this part afraid of? What is it trying to do for me? Now, sometimes this takes time. It might not all happen in one meeting place moment. You may have to return again and again, day after day, simply sitting with this part, inching closer, building trust. For me and this boulder-like protector part of me, it wasn't immediately clear what it wanted or the good that it was trying to do. And that's okay. That simply means there's still more to learn, more to see, more to understand. For me, this wasn't a one and done kind of moment. It was months, even years. At first, I could only sit across from this kind of ominous boulder creature. And as I did, I would survey it, study it, noticing small things about it. It seemed ominous, but also sad. And I would say that to this part. You seem big and scary, but also sad. And then I inched closer to it. It didn't seem spooked by my proximity. So then eventually I sat beside this big boulder-like protector of mine, and I'd say things like, I know that you're good. Thank you for protecting me, even if I don't fully understand you yet. I'm grateful for what you've tried to do. Eventually, I got close enough to reach out and touch that rock-like shoulder. Again, I want to reiterate that this process took months. Sometimes it'll take years to unfold. It did not happen in one meeting place moment. I had to spend a long time simply sitting with this part before I was able to get close enough to reach out and touch it. And there were many times when I tried to go deeper with this part, trying to understand it more fully, but I couldn't. And when that happened, I would simply sit with it. Looking back, I think that was incredibly important. Sitting with this part without an agenda, without rushing the process, helped build the trust that was needed. In a sense, I wasn't just telling this part that I wanted to know it. I was showing it that I want to know you no matter how long it takes. I want to know the real you no matter what comes out. And over time, that kind of patient, persistent presence is what allowed this part to begin softening and opening up. Once I had spent that time offering this part my presence, showing up with patience and unconditional positive regard, it began to soften a bit. It allowed me to get closer and eventually to reach out and touch its shoulder. And when I did, it slowly looked up at me with sad eyes, still hunched over, still guarded, but now I could begin to see what he was afraid of. And this big protector part of me was afraid of me experiencing rejection, of feeling unloved and unprotected again, afraid that if I trusted people, I would be left unprotected. Once you understand what a part wants and fears, you validate it. In couples therapy, I call this catching the football. Before you respond with your own message, you first have to receive their message. And the only way someone knows that you've received their message is if you reflect it back to them in your own words. So the formula for validation is simple. It's 1 part summary, 1 part compassion, and 1 part gratitude. So for example, with this boulder protector part of mine, I might say, it makes sense that you withdrew from the vulnerability of trusting others. You were afraid of not being protected by the people who are supposed to love you most. Protection is a huge part of love. And when that protection wasn't there, it made you question whether you were lovable at all. That must have been incredibly heavy to carry. Thank you for trying to keep me safe all these years. You heard the summary, right? You heard the compassion and you heard the gratitude. This is how to validate parts. Tell them what you heard and understand about them. Show compassion for their pain, then express gratitude for what they're trying to do for you, however misguided. When we approach our parts like this, arms open, palms up, compassion first, they finally feel understood. And when parts feel understood, they soften. And this is where something powerful can happen. Because when protectors feel truly seen, when you thank them, validate them, and stop treating them like the enemy, something begins to soften and change. For me, when I finally thanked that bolder protector part of mine, really thanked him, I imagined leaning my head on his rock-like shoulder in a sign of gratitude. And something remarkable happened. He softened. His arms opened. And inside those arms was a 7-year-old version of me, the exile, the younger part that still carried the pain of feeling unprotected earlier in my life. This boulder-like protector wasn't mean. He wasn't irrational. He was simply doing the only thing he knew how to do, to protect the wounded child inside from feeling that pain being triggered again and again. In the mind of this bolder protector part, the best way to keep that 7-year-old exiled part of me safe was to keep her hidden away, to never trust anyone again, to make sure no one ever got close enough to hurt us like that again. And because most of our parts formed in childhood, they often think the way that children do. It would be like asking my 7-year-old to protect our whole family. He might not come up with the best strategies, but every idea would come from a sincere, loving place. And that's how our parts work too. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about how once protectors trust us, we can begin to gently meet the exiles that they've been guarding, those tender places inside that carry burdens, like that 7-year-old part of me that believes I'm not precious enough to be protected. But we don't rush there. We earn our way there through connection with these protector parts. I often encourage clients to spend 10 to 15 minutes a day connecting with their inner world. Go to that meeting place, invite a part, strive to see it fully. And even if you don't yet see it fully, tell it what you do see. You might say, I see how hard you've been working. Or, thank you for trying to protect me. Or, I'm sorry I didn't understand you before. You can even tell God, El Roy, the God who sees, the story of that part, how it formed, what it's afraid of, and what good it has tried to do for you. This is how trust begins to form, by seeing. Now, this work is not quick. Some parts open up in minutes, others take weeks, months, or even longer. And that's okay. Remember, our goal here is connection, not control. One last bridge that can help you apply this in everyday life. The meeting place is just one way to connect with parts, but another powerful way is through post-reflection after a moment when a part kind of took over. Maybe you blew up at your spouse, or maybe you withdrew from your boss, or maybe you felt a sudden wave of shame while talking to a friend. In that moment, reflection is usually impossible. But later, when you're calm and you're feeling safe, you can revisit that moment internally and ask, what happened there inside of me? What did I feel in my body? What part might have been activated? Then ask those same questions that we covered before. How do I feel toward this part? Clear any deck that needs to be cleared. And then ask, what is this part afraid of? What is it trying to protect me from? Often, this is where parts reveal themselves most clearly. Honestly, if you stopped the IFS journey here at this episode, you would already have something incredibly powerful. Learning to understand and connect with your inner world creates internal safety. Life will still be hard. Things will still fall apart. There will still be triggers. But it no longer feels like the rug can be pulled out from under you because you know how to tend to what's happening inside. It's like that old 90s movie Bubble Boy with Jake Gyllenhaal. I usually use that metaphor in therapy with my clients. This movie is about a boy whose mother was so afraid of germs that she had him live inside of this plastic protective bubble. And when we learn to navigate our inner world well, it's almost like developing a spiritual and emotional bubble, one that's governed by you and God, not by your circumstances. Now, the world will still be chaotic, but inside there is safety, and that safety is born of the connection that you have internally. I would define connection as being seen, known, understood, and loved. When you can connect with your internal parts, you can move through life more grounded, more rooted, more anchored, and more secured. And that changes everything. Thanks for joining me today in this discussion of IFS. In our next episode, we'll talk about how to ask protector parts to step aside so we can gently access those exiles that they've been guarding, and how to meet those tender places without overwhelming them. Until then, let's keep our hearts set on things above.